Get up, let me begin. This is CWSN. You ain't heard about us yet, well you better know now, because it's the place that it all goes down. Get up, let me begin. This is CWSN. You ain't heard about us yet, well you better know now, because it's the place that it all goes down.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the place to be every Thursday night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific. This is where you get all of your combat sporting news. My name is Michael Daly. I'm joined alongside my co-host, Nader Assaf. Nader, what's going on, bud?
Nothing much, man. Excited for another week of some combat sports talk. We have a great show, a great list of topics lined up. So, yeah, I'm excited to get into it.
Unfortunately, though, we have to talk about a topic that is not so great, a topic that should have been prevented, and that is Jorge Masvidal being charged with battery. He was actually arrested last night. He took himself into custody. He was released on matching the bond, and then he has a court date, I believe, in April. The reason being, he decided to attack what, according to the report, was a victim, but the victim was Colby Covington outside a steakhouse in Miami, Florida. Nader, what were your takeaways on this one?
I might get, bashed for this, but I'm on Colby's side. Although I'm technically not on his side, I side with Colby because I think what Jorge did was extremely immature. And yes, don't get me wrong. You should never put someone else's family, religion, name, anything in your mouth. We've seen this with Conor and Colby being the two most notorious trash talkers in the entire of MMA. And yes, did Colby go over the line? Definitely. But when you have beef at the level that these two have, Jorge didn't say some nice things either. So, I mean, especially coming from the fact that there was reports that came out that he didn't even go up to Colby. He sucker punched him with a surgical mask and a hoodie on. That was just That, in my opinion, did not match Jorge's persona. He is who he is, and he went and he attacked Colby, which I respect in a certain way because, yes, you're at least who you say you are. If someone talks, they're going to get, payback in return. They're going to get what they ask for. But at the same time, to sneak up on him like that was just out. I think that was completely wrong on Jorge's side. If you're at least going to do it, you're going to have to do it face-to-face. You're going to let him know who you are. And then you're going to you're not going to go up behind him while he's at a steakhouse with the Nelk boys with a surgical mask and a hoodie, completely hiding your identity, and then sucker punch him from behind. At the same time, should Colby have pressed charges? That's a whole different story. That's a completely different thing. But it's just an unfortunate event. Could have been prevented, and I'm not happy with Jorge's decision-making here.
I agree with you, Nader. I do. But there are two sides to every story. Actually, there's three sides to every story. Let me present Jorge Masvidal's side to the story. Yes, I fought you 2 weeks ago. If you're Jorge Masvidal talking about Colby Covington, yes, we squared off, but that wasn't enough. You talked a lot of stuff. You're saying that you're the king of Miami. Well, I live in Miami, and now you have to come see me. I think Jorge, because he comes from a different background where he is used to the street life, he is used to, if you talk, you better back it up. So he thought, all right, I know where he's at on a Monday night. He's trying to enjoy himself. Not for long. I'm going to make him regret what he said about me. Now, if I am a third party, which we are, Nader, what Jorge did was wrong. You should never put your hands on anybody. But if you're trying to understand his logic, this has been building up. And it got to a point where he said, okay, now is my time to strike. Was it a good look for Jorge? Absolutely not. But Jorge doesn't care. Jorge's been plotting this out for a while. He just happened to strike while the iron was hot. Was it the right move? No. But Jorge is going to do what Jorge is going to do. He doesn't care about the law. He does not care about being a UFC superstar.
And there, Michael, I think that I can understand Jorge's point of view. It's not that I don't understand it. It's just the fact that I don't agree with it. Especially coming from the fact that, of course, when you're going to go up to someone like that, on the street, it's not necessarily as if you're going to just go up straight in front of them, say, hey, I'm going to punch you in the face right now and do it. Of course, you're going to have some sort of, not necessarily, you're going to have to be sneaky about it because, of course, Jorge wanted to get something out of that altercation to hurt Colby. Did he hurt Colby? Yes. He chipped, I believe, 2 teeth, fractured Colby's cut and broke Colby's $90,000 Rolex, which Colby, I believe, is also suing Jorge for, which is pretty interesting.
As he should.
As he should, yeah. I mean, it's an expensive watch, and you broke it by sneaking up on him. You didn't even give Colby the opportunity to fight back. He just went up and socked him in the face, and that's the thing I cannot get behind. If they both, just the whole saying of on site with Dustin Poirier and Jorge Masvidal, 2 guys from American Top Team, it's different if Jorge and Colby got into an altercation that was two-sided. They somehow, somewhere, were in the same place, saw each other, words were exchanged, then punches were thrown. I would have been on Jorge's side. I would have completely understood that. It was an altercation, 2 ways. Both guys were ready and should have been expecting a fight. The fact that he snuck up on him while he was eating dinner with YouTubers, that's just absurd to me.
It's not a good look at all, but look, Jorge doesn't abide by the rules. That is clear. He believes he is the king of Miami. He is street Jesus for a reason. And Colby, unfortunately, had to pay the price for it. But I think we can lay this topic to rest now because the legislation, the law, the letter of the law will rule down on Jorge Masvidal. And who knows whether he'll see time in jail or if he has to pay Colby for any damages. Who knows? The lawyers will handle that. Let's talk about the most recent event with the UFC. That was last week, UFC London. Let's kick it off. Paddy Pimblett. Talk about a well-rounded mixed martial artist. A lot of people hype him up for his striking ability, his ability to stand in the pocket and trade shots. But what a lot of people did not know about him, he had 5+ submissions heading into that fight. I believe it was 6, and then it was 7, and that was his 8th submission on his career. Paddy Pimblett knows what he's doing on the ground. It does not matter if he's clipped. He's comfortable in the guard on his back, and it showed for it with the win.
I mean, huge props to Paddy Pimblett. I loved his walkout. I loved his whole demeanor. He was in his home crowd. Molly McCann already got them hyped to see him. And it was just an overall enjoyable experience. But, Michael, I do have to be honest. I'm an analyst, and therefore I have to analyze Pimblett's win. It was nowhere near perfect, and there was some critiques that I have to give Paddy Pimblett. Of course, he's a world-class mixed martial artist, and I am a dude analyzing him behind a desk. So, of course, take this with a grain of salt. But at the same time, I don't know if you can consider it a drop because it wasn't necessarily like Paddy was hurt, but he took a shot from Kazula Vargas that got him on the ground in the first place. As much as we should be impressed by this win, and I think it might have been a bit glorified coming from the fact that it was UFC London, and of course, Paddy's British. Mm-hmm. So, I gotta say, Paddy Pimblett, he needs cleaner wins if he wants to be considered the next star in the UFC. Because right now, in the lightweight division, which in my opinion is, I want to say the 3rd best division in the UFC currently, he needs to get his act together and he needs to have cleaner wins. Because getting hit in the face by Kazula Vargas is not a good look. Getting rocked by Luigi Vendramini is not a good look. Those are 2 guys that are at the bottom of the food chain right now in the UFC lightweight division. Of course, Kazula Vargas and Luigi Vendramini are, again, great mixed martial artists. They made it in the UFC. They got wins in the UFC. So, of course, there's, getting wins over guys in the UFC in general as a young fighter like Paddy coming straight out of Cage Warriors is a good thing. But at the same time, there are some things that are discouraging about his win.
Nader, the one thing I have to disagree with what you said he needs to clean his act up, get his act together. You're right.
I think he needs to get his act up when it comes to fighting in the cage.
Yeah, no, that's what I know what you're talking about. I know you're not talking about the outside stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You're right to an extent. Right now, he's fighting on 12 and 12 deals, meaning $12,000 to show, and then he gets paid another $12,000 if he wins a fight. He even said he's not ready to take on ranked opponents right now. He's not ready. I think you're going to see progressively him get better fight after fight. He made improvements from the Luigi Vendramini fight against the Vargas fight. You can tell, yes, he was rocked, but he knew, okay, let me get on my back, let me get in guard, and I'll be okay. That's exactly what happened. And then look at his judo. He's a complete mixed martial artist. So I know he got clipped in both fights. Not great, but it's not like he wasn't as hurt in this fight as he was against Luigi Vendramini.
Oh, definitely.
Which I was impressed with. And he was able to do a hip toss. That's something we really haven't seen from him in the UFC.
Oh, yeah. And, of course, Paddy is a great fighter. Do I ever think that he'll reach the level of superstardom that his personality is going to get to, similar to how Conor McGregor was? No. But at the same time, I tweeted about this one fight, or I want to say about 2-3 fights, when they were actually, because I have to give it to the UFC, they're selling their superstars, and Paddy in London is a superstar. Mm-hmm. Paddy has that certain thing about him where you cannot wait to see the outcome of this fight. You cannot wait till he gets into the octagon, they lock the door, and then one of the refs starts the fight. Because he really does that have factor to him, where you're waiting, you're on the edge of your seat, and you're ready to see what's Paddy Pimblett going to do. Is he going to beat him? How's he going to beat him? Is it going to be submission? Is it going to be round 1? Is it going to be round 2? And I have to say, Paddy Pimblett is an entertaining fighter, and I will 100% make an effort to tune in into all his fights. So, yes, I got to give it to him. He just added more stock onto his name this weekend. And, of course, I believe that he will get better. It's just how it is. He's going to look about what he did in the Luigi Vendramini fight. He's going to look at this fight, and he's going to continue to get better. He got better from his first fight to this fight, and now he's going to get better from his next fight from this fight. So, yes, I'm definitely excited.
This was a stacked card. Up and down. We're going to talk about Tom Aspinall, but Nader, there is one fighter that you want to discuss, so I will let you do so.
Yeah, so for those of you that watched the main card, or I'm sorry, I believe that it was just off the main card after it got moved down. Paul Craig versus Nikita Krylov. What a fight. I mean, of course, it was not as much action as, maybe some of the other, one of my favorite fights, but God, this fight was so interesting for how quickly the light switched. Nikita Krylov pretty much put Paul Craig out on his back while he was against the cage and just hammering down. And I think at a certain point, Paul Craig did go out. Michael, I don't know if you share, but he was definitely – it was really close, and he was definitely by far hurt. And then just with a flip of a switch, he threw in the triangle, I believe, put Nikita Krylov out. Not necessarily out, but he tapped 5 seconds in. To generate that amount of power on your back out of absolutely nowhere after getting rocked the entire first round, that's just so impressive. And Paul Craig has really, really rejuvenated his career. What are your thoughts on it?
Paul Bear Drew Craig, man, he is a title contender. He's someone that you can't overlook. And once he was able to beat Jamal Hill last June, that's when I said, okay, this guy, he's going to be around for a while. He might not ever fight for a title, but he is going to be someone who is on that doorstep with his submission game and the fact that it was in London, a place that he is familiar with because it is the United Kingdom and he is from Scotland. He had juice around him. You could tell he was excited to fight, and it showed. It didn't matter. When he was rocked, he felt the energy from the crowd, and he used it to his advantage to pull off the submission victory. So, to Paul Craig, hats off to him. He is going to be a problem, Nader, in his division.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And he actually called out a very, very interesting fight. Now, do I think it's going to happen in all honesty? No. But the fact that he's calling for guys like Anthony Smith is a huge, huge sign to show that, because I actually learned a couple weeks ago before UFC London that Paul Craig was 1-2 or 1-3 going into his fight with Magomed Ankalaev. If it wasn't for that last-second submission, he would most likely be out of the UFC and possibly retired by now. So the fact that he's just really been able to just turn his career around and then get wins over guys like Jamal Hill, who has looked absolutely phenomenal against Johnny Walker, and Crute. Get wins over guys like Nikita Krylov, who is a proven veteran that has multiple great names on his resume. It's just great. And I think with guys like Paul Craig, I don't care what anyone says, I'm a fan of the way he fights. You never know what's going to happen. He always puts on a show, whether he's getting beat up and then throws up a submission. It's always entertaining. And I would love to watch him fight, and I'm really excited to see how the UFC handles him because they got a potential star in the making.
There's a good chance he could have a rematch against Ankalaev too. That would be something that could intrigue me. But okay, let's jump up one weight class from a light heavyweight to a heavyweight showdown. Tom Aspinall, just when some people doubted him, said the lights are going to be a little too bright fighting in front of his home crowd. He said, I'm going to take down Alexander Volkov. I'm going to dominate him for as long as this fight goes. And trust me, it did not go very long. He submitted him with an arm lock. Nader, that was incredible.
Oh, he came out to move on up. And what did he do, Michael? He just moved on up in the rankings. He's now the officially, I believe, number 6 or 5th ranked fighter in the UFC heavyweight division. And a while ago, when he fought Sergey Spivak, I believe.
Yeah.
Spivak. I told you, I was like, Michael, you may have Cyril gone, but this is my guy. This is my guy. He is on the come up, and he dominated Alexander Volkov. And Alexander Volkov is one of my favorite fighters. I was on his bandwagon. I mean, not necessarily his bandwagon, but I love him so much. His whole demeanor, his fighting skills, the fact that he's just a 6'7", just, daunting, menace of a human being when it comes
to... He's Drago.
He's Ivan Drago in real life. And just to see how Tom Aspinall went in there fearless about a guy who's been in there with the likes of Derek Lewis, been in there with the likes of some of the best heavyweights you can name, went in there, dominated him on the feet, which is Volkov's specialty, and then managed to get that submission. That submission, not only did it come out of nowhere, for the most part, I want to say, because he just flipped the switch real quick. He didn't even set it up long. It wasn't telegraphed. He just went, boom, and it was over. And the fact that he got that type of submission as well, you rarely see something like that. I think that's the first time I've seen it in my time watching MMA. It's phenomenal. I can honestly see him beating pretty much anyone in the UFC heavyweight division with work. Right now, no. But I think that if he continues to fight, if Francis Ngannou leaves, we can have a new heavyweight champion for years to come.
Let me pose a question to you, because this is a fight that could happen.
Oh, I know what you're going to say.
Tom Aspinall, Cyril Gane. Who do you have winning right now? What's today's date? March 24th. So what is your answer as of March 24th, less than a week removed from Aspinall's last fight?
As of March 24th, I'm going to be going with Tom Aspinall to beat Cyril Gane. And yes, Michael, I know that's very, very tough, and I want to choose Cyril Gane. But I just believe that Cyril Gane has never fought someone like this. He's always been the more craftier, new age heavyweight with anyone that he's been in the octagon with. Can't you agree with that? But he's never seen a guy like Tom Aspinall, just like nobody's seen a guy like Cyril Gane. And right now, believe me, Cyril Gane is better. But I don't think that'll be Tom Aspinall's next fight. I think that he'll fight the winner of Chris Daukaus and Curtis Blades, which we'll talk about a bit later. I think that will be a good fight. But as good as Cyril Gane is, his last fight was very discouraging. Yes, he faced Francis Ngannou. But I mean, I'm not even going to lie. This could be a bit biased. I hated the way Cyril Gane fought that fight. I disliked the way that he went in there. Yes, it's a style that's very safe and point winning, but I didn't like it. I feel like Tom Aspinall has the perfect skill set to counter it, plus the wrestling. I think the wrestling in jiu-jitsu is huge and would be something that can get him the win over Cyril Gane. Right now, if they were to fight tomorrow, I'm going Cyril Gane, but by the time they fight, I'm going Tom Aspinall.
Didn't you just say Tom Aspinall?
I said if they were to fight. At the time, I think they're going to fight. Because I said that I believe that Tom Aspinall doesn't fight Cyril Gane next. I say by the time they fight, it's going to be Tom Aspinall. Right now, it's Cyril Gane.
Well, Nader, let me put it to you this way. If it stays on the feet, I still favor Cyril Gane.
That's fair. 100%.
the ground part of it scares me because if Francis Ngannou could dominate you on the ground at the end of the fight where you look tired, Aspinall could do the same. I do not think Aspinall will submit him, which I think Aspinall is going to try to do, or at least ground and pound him. That could be what helps out Ciryl Gane. The fact that Aspinall knows, okay, I got to dominate this guy on the ground if I want to win. And if I want to stamp it, I have to submit him. Ciryl Gane, I think, has enough in octagon veteranship, if you will, that I don't think he can be stopped. He might lose, but I don't think he can be stopped. And that's a dangerous Ciryl Gane. If you could survive Francis Ngannou with wrestling, I think you could survive Tom Aspinall. The biggest thing, Nader, he just has to figure out how can he stay on his feet long enough so that either A, he can hurt Aspinall, which is possible, or he can just have an advantage over 5 rounds. Because his footwork, a lot of people forgot. Gane's footwork, he's like a featherweight.
Oh, yeah. And believe me, Ciryl Gane, I think, is the most skilled heavyweight one of the most skilled heavyweights we've ever seen. I think that this was a huge loss in his career and his legacy because many people, including myself, thought that he could have been, or he still can technically, but it's going to be hard with the loss to Francis Ngannou.
Right.
Especially if Ngannou beats one more huge contender. It's pretty unclear who his next fight's going to be. I think that it will be either Tom Aspinall or Tuivasa soon enough. But it's just very interesting because Ciryl Gane, I mean, he's fantastic, an absolutely phenomenal fighter, one of the best I've ever seen touch an octagon when it comes to his skill set, how pure he is, the fact that he's 230 plus pounds and moving like Ilia Topuria out there. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's definitely a tough predicament. And with a full camp expecting wrestling, I think that Ciryl Gane's groundwork could be a bit better. But I mean, Francis Ngannou laying down on you for 3 rounds after you're up. All he needed to do really, Michael, was keep standing up in that 5th round, and he would have been the heavyweight champion. It was poor decision-making on his part, poor decision-making on his corner's part. But, I mean, this light heavyweight division, we're getting to see Frank Mir 2.0 against Ciryl Gane. So, I mean, it's definitely a nice, bright way for a heavyweight division that looked to be in trouble when it came to future contenders.
Aspinall looks like, he looks like Frank Mir. That's something that just now I thought of after you said it. But yeah, that is an interesting observation. But I got to go with Ciryl Gane though. Before we move on, I just got to say Ciryl Gane. He was there for a reason. He was scouting. He knew what he was doing. All he has to do is just work on his wrestling. Easier said than done, I know. But if anyone can do it, if anyone can figure it out, it's Ciryl Gane.
Definitely.
Speaking of figuring it out, though, let's transition to a championship boxing match. The 126-pound division, the IBF featherweight title is on the line. Kiko Martinez, the champion, is defending his belt in a rematch against Josh Warrington. These two fought May 2017. A world title was not on the line 5 years ago, but now it is. In that first go-around, Nader, Josh Warrington won by decision. This time around, though, Kiko Martinez is a revamped fighter. He has all the momentum, and he has a belt. How do you see this one unfolding?
Although I think that it should be much closer, I believe that Warrington right now is a minus 300 favorite for a reason. Warrington is a great fighter. He's been in there in the octagon with Kiko Martinez, not the octagon, the ring with Kiko Martinez, and he knows how to fight. I think that his record is much cleaner, 30-1. As much as Kiko Martinez has revamped his career, it looked like a couple fights ago that Josh Warrington was on his way out, and he completely switched it around with a couple wins. So I think it's going to be a very interesting fight. You definitely do not count out the champion, but I think that Josh Warrington will not knock him out this time, but win similar to the way that he did in May 2017 and end up beating him on points.
Nader. I see where you're coming from, but respectfully, I have to disagree. I have to disagree because his last 2 fights against Mauricio Lara, and I don't know how much of those 2 fights you caught, The first one, he was knocked out, a fight he should have won.
Mm-hmm.
And then their second go around in 2021, Josh Warrington hit him with an accidental clash of heads, and the fight ended in a technical draw. Those are two awful, awful results if you're Josh Warrington trying to get payback on Mauricio Lara. If you're a Josh Warrington fan, and I actually consider myself to be a Josh Warrington fan, you have to bank on the fact that he can counter and he can fight off of his back foot. He'll be okay with not leading the dance, which is what he did in the second fight against Lara. In a rematch against Kiko Martinez, will he be able to fight off his back foot? I don't want to put money on it. And I think it is wild for the odds to be minus 300.
I agree with that. That's much too far apart.
I mean, Nader, did you see what Kiko Martinez did to Kid Galahad to win the title?
I mean, did, yes. That was great.
That right hand is a touch of death. Josh Warrington gets touched with that, it's over.
And many people didn't think that he would have beat Galahad. Many people were doubting him as well. And that's why I'm saying you definitely don't count out the champ. It's just a very interesting dynamic because it's always that pressure fighter versus the counter striker. And it's really a toss-up in the air because we see this all the time in MMA with the clash of styles with wrestling and MMA and striking. So it's whoever can impose their will. And I think long-term, I'm going to take the counter striker because I believe this fight is 12 rounds.
Yep, it's
12 rounds. So 12 rounds is a lot of time to continue to pressure. And once you get tired, you're not going to be pressuring. And that's when it goes into Warrington's game. So it should be a very interesting fight. I'll definitely be tuning in. So I'm very excited.
I want to go with Warrington because I've been a big fan of his for probably the last 7 years. I've been following him in the British circuit and then when he made it to the world level. But Kiko Martinez is having just a career renaissance right now. And again, after the loss to Gary Russell, he has just flipped a switch where that right hand, it doesn't look like it's powerful, but it dropped Kid Galahad twice. And Kid Galahad was like, what just happened to me? He did not know what hit him. As a Josh Warrington fan, that scares me. And that's why I'm going to go with Kiko Martinez.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Glover Teixeira hype revamp. You always love to see the older guys just go in there and just find something when it looks as if they're, never going to become champion, just flip a switch like that. I think that's been the whole theme of this episode, just flipping a switch, coming back. So, yeah, I mean, honestly, I think that it should be a pick'em type, betting odds.
A lot closer than minus 300. I mean, what are we doing here? What are we doing?
Yeah, you just can't say minus 300, especially against the champ. This is as bad as Islam Makhachev being a minus 400 favorite against Charles Oliveira opening odds. People just got to give their respect to certain fighters, and Kiko Martinez definitely deserves respect.
Look, if you're a betting person out there, you might want to sprinkle some dough on Kiko Martinez. Don't say I told you, but I told you. Let's talk about the last topic we have here on the show before we wrap it up. UFC Columbus. Nader, first off, before we get into the main event, I love fight nights being away from the Apex now. Don't get me wrong. I'm a big Apex guy. I grew so accustomed to the Apex, but there's nothing like an arena where 10,000 people can flock inside and enjoy a non-pay-per-view card. It's awesome. It is awesome.
Oh, I mean, as soon as I got into MMA, as you know, March 2021, the first card I ever really watched as a UFC fan was UFC 259, Adesanya versus Blachowicz.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never, ever seen a fight night outside of the Apex. So it's just absolutely wild to me, because it felt like a pay-per-view. It genuinely did. And I always love pay-per-views. Pay-per-view Saturdays, I literally cancel on everyone. I don't care if it's your birthday. I don't care if it's anything. I'm sitting on my couch and I'm watching from top to bottom, bottom to top, the entire pay-per-view. And UFC London felt like a pay-per-view. And guess what? Dana White, Uncle Dana, he's treating us well, and he's giving us another fight night in a circuit. Our guy Ted Ashbrook, he's going to be able to go there and watch the fights, and he's that environment, in my opinion, is just going to be, It's going to be great, and it's going to be similar to UFC London. It's going to be some fun, and I'm very, very excited for another fight night. Not in the Apex, all love to the Apex. Saved MMA for 2 years at this point. So I'm just very, very happy that we're going to be another, non-numbered pay-per-view, just crowd fight night for a card like UFC Columbus.
Right, and Ted's going to have a great time. I mean, that's going to be a jumping environment. I'm sure Stipe Miocic is going to be there.
Oh, yeah.
I would expect no less for Stipe to be there. But let's talk about the main event. Originally, it was supposed to be Jan Blachowicz, Alexander Rakic, and the UFC, they were scrambling, trying to salvage the card. They were wondering if Kai Kara-France could possibly be in there. He's on the card, but he's not headlining. The headlining fight, though, Curtis Blades, Razor Blades, going up against Chris Daukaus, the former Philadelphia police officer. This is going to be a banger, Nader, and I do not suspect this goes the distance.
I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. It's an odd fight, but it doesn't mean that it is a bad fight. I mean, two of the top heavyweights in the world squaring off always gets me excited. I mean, Blades is a minus almost 400 favorite, but let's give some respect to Daukaus. Daukaus can put your lights out just like that. He's one of the more precise, Cyril Gane, Tom Aspinall type heavyweights in the sense that he's not a traditional, going to go up to you, weighs 265 pounds, is just going to knock you out. He's refined his game, he's polished it, and it's just absolutely beautiful. He has a great boxing, he has great kicks, he can even wrestle a little bit. He's just an all-around guy, because guys who usually get late into MMA really just go all around. They work on their wrestling, they work on their BJJ, they get their Muay Thai in, they get their kicks in, their boxing in. And Daukaus is just an absolute pleasure to watch. I mean, in recent memory, I think his fight against Shamil Abdurakhimov is one of the ones where I just was completely standing up the entire time. It was a joy to watch, and I've never heard of Chris Daukaus before that night. And I became a fan of him as soon as he landed the first couple of punches on Abdurakhimov. And when you have a guy like that, you have to tune in. And Curtis Blades, yes, forget that whole Derek Lewis thing. Anybody in the world would get knocked out if Derek Lewis hit him with that shot. And they would take it worse than Curtis Blades did. Because, I mean, yes, his body may have stiffened up, but he ate 2 shots. He got up fairly soon, and he bounced back. He accepted the loss. He took it like a champ, and now he's back. He's going into title contention. He still is in title contention. And with a win over Chris Daukaus, it can float you right back up. I think that Curtis Blades most likely is going to win this fight, but I hope it stays on the feet a little bit because I want to see Chris Daukaus work his magic.
I don't think Blades gets a stoppage win if he does win. I think he gets a decision win using his wrestling. What people have to remember, though, and this is why I'm actually picking Chris Daukaus to win. Chris Daukaus can strike, like you highlighted, Nader. Shamil Abdurakhimov, that fight was great. His win against Alexei Oleinik, that was a great stoppage TKO victory on his part. He can strike. He's also, again, a heavyweight. You cannot overlook anybody. Same way Curtis Blades' power, so does Chris Daukaus. One thing I want to highlight, though, is that although Chris Daukaus does not have any submission victories on his resume, he's comfortable on his back because he is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner. He knows what he's doing down there. So if he does get taken down, or when he gets taken down, I suspect him to be able to find his way back to his feet. And I think he's going to land a big-time overhand right, hurt Curtis Blades, and then polish him off with some ground and pound. So I actually think Chris Daukaus is going to get a second-round TKO stoppage victory. I see it. I see the upset. I thought he was going to beat Derek Lewis. He didn't. I think Chris Daukaus gets a comeback win.
And honestly, Michael, as much as I would love to disagree with you and feel like, nope, Curtis Blades is winning, Curtis Blades is not my final pick. It's really going to depend on how I feel that day because I remembered one thing. His fight against Biggie Boy was not his best showing. Biggie Boy touched him up, closed his eye up, and Jairzinho Rozenstruik, as much as I love him, he fought a very, very frustrating fight. It was very, very confusing. He didn't make an attempt to get up off his back. He just, at a certain point, just accepted the fact that he was going to lose when he could have won. He didn't do as much striking as he would have wanted to. He accepted and just, did some rookie mistakes in that fight that I'm not a fan of. But the fact that Chris Daukaus, in my opinion, who has just as good, if not better, takedown defense and wrestling than Biggie Boy, has the opportunity to, keep it standing with Curtis Blades. And as good as Biggie Boy is as a striker, I believe that Chris Daukaus is more technical and, just all around better sound striker. Yes, Rosenstrike can put you out with a flip of, he can put you out with one punch. But Chris Daukaus can too. He knocked down Shamil Abdurakhimov twice with just two beautiful shots that weren't even as hard as he could have thrown. So I think that Chris Daukaus 100% has a chance. Just like the Kiko Martinez fight, the odds should be much closer. Even though he's coming off a loss, I think that it should be an amazing fight. Great headliner. Interesting way to save this card. I mean, I don't know where they came out with this, but props to them for doing it. And, other great fights on this card, too. You got Neil Magny, someone I enjoy watching fight.
Yep.
Nekar France and Askar Askarov, two of the best flyweights in the world, and a title eliminator. It's just going to be another fun Saturday, Michael.
Yep. Joanne Wood, or Calderwood, as she was previously known as. She's competing on here. Alexa Grasso is who Joanne Wood is taking on. That's going to be a good fight. The last thing I'll say, I don't know what it is with me and odds makers this week. I'm going with the underdogs, baby. Give me the underdogs. Kiko Martinez, I mean, come on. A minus 300 underdog, that's what you're going to tap him as. And then you're having Blades as the minus 300 favorite against Chris Daukaus. I'm sorry. I think those odds should be around minus 180.
It's actually minus 400. It's minus 380, which is even bigger.
Exactly. Yep. Minus 380 for Blades. Martinez was minus 300. So, or I should say Warrington was minus 300. So I don't know. I don't know. I feel like if you pick the underdog, you might get paid well.
Oh yeah. I mean, this is definitely an interesting little betting night for our sports bettors. So definitely make sure to tune into the TWSN Patreon for any sports bets this weekend, because even if it's not UFC, we have college basketball, college anything. We have NBA, MLB starting up. We're gonna have some MLB betting too. So go subscribe to the Patreon as well, because I'm telling you, with nights like these where you're gonna have some underdogs who might have a very good shot at winning, you want to go to the TWSN Patreon to make some money.
The Patreon page is hotter than some old fish grease. We are cooking up. So make sure you go subscribe to that. You go subscribe to our YouTube channel. You follow our Twitter and Instagram pages. And you just show TWSN some overall love. But that is going to do it from my co-host, Nader Assaf. I am Michael Daly saying so long. Take care. Peace.
Get up, get